My name is Serafina Rossi, and I am 28 years old. As a junior partner at one of Portland's most respected architectural firms, I should feel like I've built something solid. Instead, every month when I authorize the $1,800 transfer for my parents' mortgage, I feel like the scaffolding holding up a beautiful, crumbling facade. Despite financing their lives, I remain the family's structural disappointment, while my younger brother, Marco, is admired as a work of art. This past Thanksgiving changed the entire blueprint of my life. Before I tell you how I finally redrew my own boundaries, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that subscribe button and like this video if you have ever felt like the foundation everyone relies on but no one ever sees. Growing up in the Rossi household meant understanding a fundamental, unspoken truth. My father, Victor, a retired history professor, judged the world on its intellectual and aesthetic merits, and I consistently fell short. Nothing I accomplished was ever quite conceptually sound enough. The A+ on a physics exam was met with, "A grasp of mechanics is one thing, Sarah, but do you appreciate the elegant universal laws behind them?" My meticulously constructed model of the Globe Theatre for a high school English project earned a brief nod and a murmur about its lack of historical verisimilitude. He didn't raise his voice. He simply raised an eyebrow, a far more devastating gesture. My mother, Isabella, was different, but her effect was the same. Where Dad was intellectually dismissive, Mom was socially disappointed. A former chair of numerous charity balls and community arts councils, she saw her children as extensions of her own curated life. "That's lovely, dear," she would say, her eyes scanning my practical, comfortable clothing with a sigh, before turning to praise my brother's latest abstract sketch. Her quiet disappointment felt like a draft in a house I could never make warm. Then there was Marco, 3 years younger than me. He became the golden child the moment he picked up a piece of charcoal and smudged it across a canvas with what my mother called innate, untutored genius. His C-average report cards were evidence of a mind too creative to be constrained by rote memorization, while my perfect GPA was a sign I was perhaps trying a bit too hard. When he won a local art competition at 16, my parents framed the newspaper clipping. When I was accepted into the University of Oregon's prestigious architecture program with a significant scholarship, I received a pat on the arm and "Well, you always did enjoy your little drawings." This pattern was the very bedrock of my childhood. I learned to find validation in the clean lines of a blueprint, in the quiet hum of a computer rendering a design, in the deep, personal satisfaction of knowing I was building a life for myself, brick by brick. College was my escape hatch. In Eugene, I immersed myself in the world of form, function, and light, graduating at the top of my class. No one from my family attended the ceremony. Marco had a gallery opening for his student art show that same weekend. I told myself it didn't matter. I landed an internship, then a full-time position at Riverside Design Collective, one of Portland's most forward-thinking firms, and I built a life for myself in the city's vibrant Pearl District. For 5 years, I kept a polite distance. Holiday visits were brief, phone calls perfunctory. I was a supportive beam, present but not central to the main structure. Then, 3 years ago, the foundation of their world cracked. Dad called me on a Tuesday night, his voice stripped of its usual academic authority. The small liberal arts college where he'd taught for 30 years had downsized, and his department was eliminated. At 62, with a highly specialized field and a disdain for modern pedagogy, his prospects were non-existent. Mom had never held a full-time job, her life's work being the cultivation of social standing and her children's perceived successes. Their savings were meager, eaten away by years of maintaining a lifestyle their income couldn't truly support. The mortgage on their beautiful, aging craftsman home, the house I grew up in, filled with books and art and quiet judgment, was 3 months behind. I had just been promoted to a senior designer role. My new salary afforded me a comfortable life, even in Portland's expensive rental market, with enough to invest and save for a future down payment on a place of my own. Without a second thought, I put my own savings goals on hold. I began paying their $1,800 mortgage directly. I also covered their utilities, property taxes, and car insurance, another $700 or so a month. Just until your father finds some consulting work, Mom had said, her hand fluttering to her chest in a gesture of temporary distress. That was 3 years ago. Dad had found no consulting work. He spent his days in his study, supposedly writing a monograph that never seemed to progress. Mom had tried selling some of Marco's art online with minimal success. The financial burden remained entirely on my shoulders. $2,500 a month. Every month. For 3 years. $90,000. Did they appreciate it? Not in any way that I could feel. Dad would still critique the soulless glass boxes my firm designed. Mom would still lament that I hadn't married a doctor or a lawyer, someone who could really take care of me. Meanwhile, Marco, who had moved to Seattle after college, worked part-time at an art supply store and lived in a subsidized artist's loft. He sent charming, handwritten letters and called on holidays, but he hadn't contributed a single dollar to our parents' survival. He remained the brilliant, sensitive artist, while I was the reliable, uninspired artisan. This year, I decided to host Thanksgiving. I had recently been made a junior partner, and my loft, with its open-plan living space and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Fremont Bridge, was perfect for entertaining. I invited Mom and Dad, Marco, and his new girlfriend, Clara. I spent weeks planning the menu, a delicate dance of appeasement, Dad's favorite Pinot Noir from the Willamette Valley, a heritage breed turkey, Mom's preferred brand of imported olive oil for the dressing, and even a complex, vegan-friendly wild mushroom tart for Marco. The Tuesday before Thanksgiving, I spent over $400 at New Seasons Market, carefully selecting organic produce, artisanal cheeses, and premium ingredients. As I loaded the heavy paper bags into my car, I felt the familiar, gut-wrenching tug-of-war between hope and dread. This time, a small voice insisted, they will see the effort, the care, the love. As I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror, my eyes already etched with anticipatory stress, another, truer voice whispered, when have they ever? Thanksgiving morning broke gray and misty over the Willamette River. I was up at dawn, the scent of rosemary and thyme already perfuming the air in my loft. The long, reclaimed wood dining table was set with my best stoneware, a minimalist aesthetic I loved and which my mother would undoubtedly find stark. Polished wine glasses caught the soft, diffused light. As I worked, my mind became a highlight reel of Thanksgivings past. Last year at their house, Dad had dissected the historical inaccuracies of the Charlie Brown special playing on TV while Mom sighed that it was a shame I didn't bring a date. The year before, they had spent the entire meal praising a small, blurry photo of one of Marco's paintings that had appeared on a local arts blog, barely glancing at the architectural digest on the coffee table that featured a project I had helped design. My phone chimed with a text from my best friend, Olivia. Survival kit assembled? Remember our talk. Boundaries are load-bearing walls, not decorative fences. I smiled, a small, grateful curve of my lips. Olivia had been my emotional scaffolding since college. She'd offered to come as a buffer, but I knew this was a storm I had to weather alone. All good, I texted back. Turkey brining, wine breathing, escape plan, sudden deadline crisis, prepped for 8 p.m. if needed. Her reply was instant. I'll call at 8 on the dot. Use code word blueprint if you need an extraction. Love you. At 11:30, my doorbell buzzed. Mom arrived first, carrying a single, perfect orchid in a pot. For the table, she said, surveying my carefully arranged centerpiece of autumn branches and white pumpkins. It needs a bit of life. She placed it directly in the center, disrupting my entire composition. The apartment is spacious, she conceded, her eyes flicking over the exposed brick and steel beams. She glanced at the turkey roasting in the oven. You're not using my cheesecloth method. I'm trying a new dry brine this year, I explained. It's supposed to make the skin even crispier. Well, I hope your father won't mind an experiment. You know how he values tradition. The word hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Tradition in our family meant things being done exactly as my parents preferred. I took a deep breath, the scent of roasting turkey a small comfort. Can I get you some wine? Mom settled on the sofa with a glass of Sancerre, idly flipping through a book on minimalist design from my coffee table, her expression unreadable. At 12:15, Marco arrived with Clara. He was carrying his guitar case. Clara, a woman with kind, intelligent eyes, held a bouquet of fiery orange dahlias. These are stunning, I said, genuinely touched as I took them from her. Thank you, Clara. Our pleasure, she said, her warm smile including Marco, who was already enveloped in a hug by my mother. Sarah, your place is incredible. The light is just, wow. Can I help with anything? Before I could respond, Mom exclaimed, Marco, darling. You look inspired. Seattle agrees with you. Marco grinned, basking in the familiar glow of her approval. I think I'm on the verge of a whole new series. It's about the intersection of urban decay and natural reclamation. How profound, sweetheart, Mom breathed. I handed Clara a glass of wine. Thanks for the offer, but I've got it under control. Clara accepted the glass, her gaze taking in the family tableau with a quiet perceptiveness. This is my first time meeting everyone. Marco has told me so much about you all. I couldn't help but wonder what, exactly, he had told her. The sympathetic glance she sent my way a moment later suggested it was more truth than poetry. Dad arrived last, at 12:45, a quarter of an hour before I planned to serve the meal. He carried a bottle of wine, which he presented to me with a critical air. A passable Cabernet. Not as complex as the '09 vintage, but it will do. He surveyed the room. Still can't believe what they charge for these sterile boxes in the Pearl District. I designed the layout myself, Dad, I said, taking the wine. It's very efficient. Efficiency is the hobgoblin of creative minds, he pronounced, a quote I was sure he'd just invented. As I returned to the kitchen to put the finishing touches on the gravy, I overheard him in the living room. She's trying to impress us with all this, he said to Mom in a stage whisper. All this minimalist furniture and expensive cookware. Who does she think she's fooling? I gripped the whisk in my hand, my knuckles turning white. $400 in groceries, $1,800 a month, $90,000 over 3 years. All for them. And this was my return on investment. When Marco wandered into the kitchen for a glass of water, I was still simmering. Hey, Sarah, he said, oblivious. Smells amazing. Is that a mushroom tart I see? It's vegan. For you, I said, my voice tight. Wow, thanks. You didn't have to. He peered over my shoulder. Dad's already holding forth on the decline of Western civilization. Same old, same old. He said it with an affectionate eye roll, a luxury I couldn't afford. For him, it was endearing paternal eccentricity. For me, it was a constant, draining critique of my life's choices. I checked the turkey one last time. The skin was a perfect, burnished mahogany. At least one thing was structurally sound. At precisely 1 p.m., I announced that dinner was ready. Everyone found their places at the table. The spread was beautiful, a landscape of color and texture. The magnificent turkey, a glistening ham, whipped sweet potatoes, roasted Brussels sprouts with balsamic glaze, the intricate mushroom tart, homemade cranberry orange relish, and fluffy, still warm rolls. Dad looked at the feast and frowned. Where's the gravy boat? Your grandmother's silver gravy boat. It's at your house, Dad, I said, pointing to the simple ceramic pitcher I was using. I thought this went better with the stoneware. He sighed. Some things are about heritage, Sarah, not aesthetics. And so it began. Let us give thanks, Dad announced, reaching for Mom's hand on one side and Marco's on the other. Our hands linked across the table. Lord, Dad began, his voice resonant. We are grateful for this gathering of family, for the food before us, and for the safe travel that brought Marco and Clara to our table. We are especially thankful for the gift of creativity, for Marco's artistic spirit which enriches all our lives. We ask your blessing on this meal and on the bonds of family, which are the only true structures that endure. Amen. My eyes stayed closed for a moment longer than the others, not in prayer, but in a state of quiet shock. There was not one word of acknowledgement for the person who had provided the food, the table, the home, and the very financial stability that allowed them to sit here. Across the table, I saw Clara's eyes meet mine. She knew. She had heard it, too. The turkey looks wonderful, Sarah, Clara offered, a gentle lob into the silence as dishes began to be passed. Yes, it's not bad, Mom allowed, in the tone one might use for a child who has successfully colored within the lines. A little on the small side, perhaps. It's a 12-pound heritage bird, I said. They're leaner. Fancy, Dad muttered, helping himself to a large slice of ham and a very small piece of turkey. Marco, already on his second glass of wine, steered the conversation to his favorite topic. So, I've been experimenting with a new layering technique, using acrylics over oil, which is technically against the rules, but I find that breaking the rules is where the real art happens. For the next 20 minutes, he and my parents discussed the transcendent nature of art, while Clara gamely asked questions. I ate in silence, the delicious food tasting like ash in my mouth. Sarah, what's the most exciting project you're working on? Clara asked during a lull, making a clear effort to draw me in. Before I could form a reply, Mom jumped in. Oh, she's always so busy with her buildings. All those straight lines and sharp corners. She turned to Marco. It's nothing like your work, darling, which is so full of emotion. Actually, I said, placing my fork down on my plate with a quiet click, I was just made a junior partner at the firm. I'm leading the design for the new Riverfront Arts Complex. That sounds amazing, Clara said, her interest genuine. Dad snorted. Another glass box, I presume. All steel and ego. It's not architecture, it's just construction. My work has soul, Dad, I said, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. Those glass boxes are community spaces where people will gather, where art, even Marco's art, might one day be displayed. And they pay you well for it, I'm sure, he said, his tone turning sharp. Which is why I find it so tiresome when you're constantly reminding us of how much you help out. The air in the room became still and heavy. Even Marco looked down at his plate. When have I ever reminded you? I asked, my voice a low tremor. Your mother mentioned you called last week to talk about the mortgage payment. I turned to my mother, who was suddenly fascinated by the pattern on her napkin. I only called because I was transferring funds from an investment account and wanted to let you know it might be a day late because of the holiday weekend. You see, Dad interrupted, his voice gaining volume. Always about the money. Always the transactions. We get it, Sarah. You're the successful one. You write the checks. Do you want a medal for it? Victor, Mom murmured, a feeble protest. No, Isabella. I'm tired of it. She holds this money over our heads. It's a form of control. My hands were shaking. 3 years. $90,000. And not once, not one single time, had I ever mentioned it unless it was a logistical necessity. I have never held anything over your heads, I said, my voice trembling. I help because you are my parents and you were about to lose your home. And we appreciate it, Mom said quickly. Of course we do. Dad stabbed a piece of mushroom tart. What I'd appreciate is a daughter who understood that family is about love and loyalty, not a balance sheet. Loyalty? The word was bitter on my tongue. I moved back to Portland to be closer, to help you. I put my own dream of buying a home on hold to pay for yours. There she goes again. Dad's voice boomed, tallying up the receipts. This is exactly what I mean. You think because you pay the bills, you're entitled to some kind of special treatment. Special treatment? I echoed, my voice hollow with disbelief. Dad, when have I ever received special treatment in this family? Marco shifted in his seat, his discomfort palpable. Guys, maybe we should just drop it. No, I said, a new, cold calm descending upon me. I want to know. What special treatment am I demanding? Is it a thank you? Is it a simple acknowledgement? Is it a Thanksgiving grace that doesn't pretend I don't exist? You want gratitude? Dad's face was flushed, a deep, angry red. Fine. Thank you, Sarah, for doing what any decent child would do for their parents. There. Are you satisfied? And in that moment, something inside me, some vital, load-bearing beam that had been groaning under the strain for 28 years, finally snapped. A decent child? What about a decent parent? One who doesn't belittle his daughter's career? One who doesn't treat her accomplishments as an affront to his own ego? One who can show a single ounce of genuine appreciation when that daughter sacrifices $90,000 of her own future to save his. That's enough. Dad slammed his hand on the table, making the glasses jump. I will not be spoken to this way he faltered, the absurdity of his position dawning on him. In my own home? Oh, wait. I guess you'd remind me that you pay for this place, too. It's my loft that I pay for. Yes, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Just like I pay for your house. Dad shot to his feet, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. I've had enough of this. We're leaving. Mom stood too, her face a mask of distress. She leaned toward me, her voice a venomous whisper. You're just jealous. You've always been jealous of Marco's talent, of his soul. He knows how to be a son. You only know how to be a bank. Her words struck me with the force of a physical blow. After everything, this was what she truly believed. I stood up slowly, a strange serenity washing over me. You're right, Mom. Marco does know how to be part of this family. He sends lovely letters and plays the part of the brilliant artist while contributing absolutely nothing to the reality of your lives. I turned to my brother. No offense, Marco. He had the grace to look deeply ashamed. I offered a small, cool smile that felt utterly foreign on my face. So, you know what? You win. Let Marco be the perfect son. Let him handle the mortgage. Let him manage the utilities and the insurance and the property taxes. That's $2,500 a month that will be staying in my bank account from now on. Dad's face went pale. Now, Sarah, don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic, Dad. I'm being transactional, remember? That was your word. And this transaction is hereby concluded. I walked to the door of my loft and held it open. Dinner is over. Please leave. Sarah, Mom began, her voice pleading. Now, I said, my voice as hard and unyielding as polished concrete. All of you. One by one, they filed out. Dad, radiating silent fury. Mom, openly weeping. Marco, unable to meet my eyes. Only Clara paused at the door. I'm so sorry, she whispered, her eyes full of a sorrow that felt real. For what it's worth, you deserve so much better. I nodded, unable to speak. After the door closed, I slid the deadbolt into place. The sound echoed in the sudden, vast silence. My beautiful table was a wasteland of half-eaten food and abandoned dreams. For $100 in groceries. $90,000 in support. And now, at long last, freedom. It had a price, but for the first time, it felt like one I was willing to pay. After they were gone, I stood in the cathedral-like silence of my loft, the ruins of the meal a testament to the demolition that had just occurred. I couldn't stand to be there. I grabbed my keys, left the mess on the table, and walked out into the damp Portland night. For 2 hours, I drove, the city lights a blur of neon through the misty windshield. I drove past the university campus, where I'd spent countless sleepless nights in the studio, past the park where Dad had tried to teach a clumsy Marco to catch a frisbee while I sat on a bench reading a book he deemed populist nonsense, past the community arts center where Mom's name was on a brass plaque, but where my award-winning student project had never been displayed. Each landmark was a station of the cross on my long pilgrimage of seeking their approval. My phone rang, slicing through the fugue of memory. It was Olivia. Hey, I answered, my voice raw. Sarah? What happened? Did you use the code word? The genuine alarm in her voice undid me. I pulled over into a deserted scenic viewpoint overlooking the river, and the story poured out of me. Dad's insults, Mom's final, cutting words, my ultimatum. Oh, Sarah, Olivia said softly when I was done. I'm so sorry that happened. But I'm also a little bit proud of you. Proud? I just blew up my family. No, you just stopped holding up a building that was designed to collapse on you, she said, her voice firm. They haven't been a family to you, Sarah. They've been a client. A very demanding, non-paying client. You've been enabling their dysfunction by absorbing all the costs, financial and emotional. A single, hot tear traced a path down my cold cheek. So this is my fault? God, no. Their behavior is their own. But continuing to pay for their life while they treated you with contempt? That was a choice you kept making, Sarah. Tonight, you just made a different one. Her words were like a searchlight, illuminating the dark, twisted architecture of our relationships. I had told myself I was being a good daughter. But what good daughter is forced to purchase her parents' survival while being treated as if her very existence is an inconvenience? You're right, I whispered. This ends now. What are you going to do? Exactly what I said I'd do, I said, a new resolve hardening in my voice. I'm cutting the cord. I started the car, the engine a low growl in the quiet night. I'll call you tomorrow. Driving back to my loft, I felt a strange combination of profound grief and steely determination. The family I had so desperately tried to love and support might be lost to me forever. But maybe that family had only ever been a blueprint, a beautiful idea that was impossible to build in reality. Back home, I methodically began to clean, clearing the table, wrapping leftovers, washing dishes. Restoring order to the physical space helped me order my thoughts for the financial deconstruction to come. Once the kitchen was gleaming, I sat at my drafting table, opened my laptop, and began to tear it all down. First, I logged into my online banking and canceled the recurring $1,800 payment to their mortgage lender. Are you sure you want to cancel this scheduled transfer? The screen asked. Yes. Then I went to the city utility website, the gas company site, the insurance portal. One by one, I removed my credit card information and canceled the auto payments. Each click was a small, satisfying demolition. Next, I drafted an email to my lawyer, a woman named Ms. Chen who had helped me with my partnership agreement. Dear Ms. Chen, for your records, I am writing to formally document my decision to cease all voluntary financial support for my parents, Victor and Isabella Rossi, effective immediately. For the past 36 months, I have covered their mortgage of $1,800 per month and additional household expenses averaging $700 per month. This support was never contractually obligated and was provided as temporary assistance. As of today, November 23rd, I am terminating all such support. Please file this statement. Regards, Serafina Rossi. After hitting send, I took a deep breath. By midnight, I had dismantled the entire financial scaffolding I had built around my parents. That $2,500 a month was now mine again. The relief was immense, but it was hollowed out by a deep, aching sadness. Despite everything, they were still my parents. I still had faint, shimmering memories of Dad reading The Hobbit to me, his voice full of character and magic, of Mom teaching me how to braid my hair before Marco was born and absorbed all the light in the room. Unwilling to be in my loft if they decided to show up, I booked a room at the Hotel Deluxe downtown. As I packed an overnight bag, my phone began to light up with notifications. Texts from Dad, oscillating between fury. This petulance is unbecoming, Sarah, and feigned concern. Your mother is distraught. Call us. Voicemails from Mom, arias of tears and accusations. Nothing from Marco. I silenced the phone, grabbed my bag, and took one last look at my quiet, orderly loft. It was supposed to be my sanctuary. Tonight, it felt like a battlefield. I was retreating, but it wasn't a surrender. It was a strategic move to higher ground, a place where I could finally defend my own emotional territory. In the quiet elegance of the hotel room, I took a long, hot shower, trying to wash away the day. Wrapped in a thick robe, I sat by the window, looking out at the glittering lights of the city that was my home, a city I had built a life in on my own terms. Tomorrow would bring a hailstorm of consequences. But tonight, I had taken the first, irreversible step toward freeing myself from a design for living that had never been sound. My phone lit up again. A text from Olivia. "You okay?" "I will be," I typed back. And for the first time in a very, very long time, I believed it. I woke the next morning to an avalanche of notifications, 42 missed calls, 28 voicemails, and nearly 70 text messages. The names were a roster of my extended family: Mom, Dad, Marco, but also Aunt Sophia, Uncle Leo, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. The family telegraph system was clearly working at peak efficiency. The first voicemail was from Dad at 7:05 a.m., his voice clipped and furious. "Sarah, your adolescent theatrics have gone on long enough. You will call me this instant." The next, from 7:40 a.m., "The bank just called. They received a cancellation notice for the mortgage payment. I trust this is some sort of error you will rectify immediately." By the 10th voicemail, his anger was curdling into panic. "Sarah, please. We need to discuss this like rational adults. Your mother is making herself sick with worry." Mom's messages were a masterclass in emotional manipulation, from the tearful, "How could you be so cruel to us after we gave you everything?" to the martyred, "I suppose we'll end up on the street, but don't you worry about us." I deleted them all and ordered room service. While I ate my Eggs Benedict, I checked my email. Miss Chin had replied. "Sarah, message received and filed. You are correct. You are under no legal obligation to continue the support." While they could theoretically attempt some sort of civil claim, it would have almost no chance of success. "Please let me know if they make any legal threats. Otherwise, know that you are well within your rights. Stay strong. Regards, Evelyn Chin." Her calm, professional reassurance was a steel beam reinforcing my resolve. I hadn't done anything illegal or immoral. I had simply stopped participating in my own exploitation. I decided to go to work. Hiding would only prolong the agony. I was at my desk, reviewing a set of schematics, when my firm's receptionist buzzed my line. "Sarah, there are a man and a woman in the lobby who say they're your parents. They're rather insistent on seeing you." My stomach plummeted, but I kept my voice level. "Please inform them that my schedule is full for the day, Maria. If they refuse to leave, you have my permission to call building security." "Are you sure?" "They're saying it's an urgent family matter." "I'm sure," I said. "The only urgency is the one they've created." "Thank you." 20 minutes later, Eleanor, the firm's senior partner, appeared at my office door. "Sarah, have you got a moment?" I braced myself. Eleanor closed the door. Her expression was one of concern, not judgment. "Security just escorted your parents from the lobby. They were causing a bit of a scene." "I am so sorry, Eleanor. I never wanted my personal life to spill over into the office. I decided to be honest. My parents and I had a severe disagreement. I've been supporting them financially for several years, and I've just informed them that I can no longer do so. They are not handling it well." Eleanor nodded slowly, her perceptive gaze taking it all in. "I see. I'm sorry you're going through that. Do you need to take the rest of the day?" Her simple, humane question almost brought me to tears. "No, thank you. Honestly, being here is a relief." "All right, but the offer stands." She turned to leave, then paused. "And Sarah? I've told security they are not to be admitted to the building again without your express approval. This is your professional space. You have a right to feel safe here." "Thank you," I managed, overwhelmed by this simple act of protection. At lunch, a text from Marco finally came through. "Mom and Dad are losing their minds. They said you cut them off. Is that for real?" I took a breath. "Yes, Marco. It's for real. I'm done being the family bank while being treated like a second-class citizen. His reply was swift. But their house? Their bills? What are they going to do? I don't know. What are you going to do, Marco? You're their son, too. I carried them for 3 years. It's someone else's turn. You know I can't afford that. My art barely pays my rent. Then I guess they'll have to do what other people do when they can't afford their lifestyle. Downsize. Get jobs. Make a budget. That's so cold, Sarah. Is it? No one seemed to think it was cold when I was sacrificing my own financial future for them while they praised your artistic soul and criticized my soulless glass boxes. There was a long pause. His next message was surprising. They never told me you were paying the mortgage. They said you were helping out a bit with the bills. I had no idea it was everything. Of course they hadn't. Admitting the full extent of their dependency would have shattered the myth of my cold, practical nature and their noble, artistic poverty. Well, now you know, I typed back. And now it's over. That evening, as I was driving back to my loft, I saw my father's aging Volvo parked across the street from my building. My heart hammered against my ribs. They were staking me out. I didn't slow down. I just kept driving, circling the block until I saw the car pull away. This was unsustainable. Just as I finally parked, my phone rang with an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? Sarah? It's Clara. My stomach clenched. Clara? Is everything okay? No, not really. I'm calling because, well, Marco won't. Your parents were at your apartment building. When you didn't come home, your father tried to use a key to get in. He doesn't have a key. I know. That's what your neighbor said when he came out and confronted them. Your dad started yelling that he was your father and had a right to be there. The neighbor called the police. The blood drained from my face. The police. Yes. They came. Took a report. Nobody was arrested, but they were warned about trespassing. They were not in a good state when they left. Thank you for telling me, Clara. I appreciate it. There's more, she said, her voice dropping. Marco and I had a massive fight over this. He kept defending them, saying you were being cruel. I told him he was being willfully blind. That it was obvious to a complete stranger how unfairly you've been treated for years. There was a sad finality in her voice. I don't think we're going to make it, Sarah. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. Don't be, she said. You didn't cause this. You just revealed what was already broken. After her call, I filed a police report about the attempted entry and installed a security camera on my door. The next day, the utilities at my parents' house, one by one, began to be shut off. I knew because my mother's texts became a running commentary of their descent into inconvenience. The internet is out. How is your father supposed to do his research? Sarah, the power is off. It is November. We have no heat. The water company is shutting us off tomorrow. I read each message and then deleted it. These weren't my problems to solve anymore. These were the natural consequences of their own choices. A week after Thanksgiving, I sat on the sleek, uncomfortable sofa in Dr. Lena Petrova's office. I had never seen a therapist before, but a week of relentless emotional warfare had convinced me I needed a professional architect for my own mental reconstruction. You've enacted a major structural change to a long-standing system, Dr. Petrova said after I'd laid out the whole story. Her voice was calm and validating. It's bound to cause seismic shocks. How does the decision feel to you now, a week later? I thought for a moment. Terrifying. Liberating. Heartbreaking. All at once. She nodded. That sounds right. You're grieving, Sarah. Grieving? But no one's died. You're grieving the family you wished you had, she corrected gently. The fantasy that if you were just good enough, generous enough, successful enough, they would finally love you the way you needed. It's a profound loss. We talked for an hour about boundaries, about enabling, about the difference between helping and being used. As I left, she said something that would become my mantra. Reconciliation requires remorse and change from the person who caused the harm. It is not your responsibility to rebuild a bridge that the other party has burned down. Outside her office, I saw a text from Marco. Can we get coffee? Just you and me. We met at a neutral cafe in a part of town neither of us frequented. He looked haggard. You look like hell, I said, forgoing pleasantries. He managed a weak smile. You too. He stirred his latte for a long time before speaking. Clara left me. I'm sorry. She was right, he said, looking up, his eyes meeting mine for the first time. About everything. About me. About them. About you. I waited. After she left, I started really thinking. Not just the family myths, but the real memories. And you got screwed, Sarah. They were always harder on you, always celebrating my smallest scribble while ignoring your major achievements. I floated through life on the praise they denied you. And I never ever said a word. No, you didn't, I said quietly. I'm so sorry. He took a deep, shuddering breath. That's not all. I went to the house. The power was off. It was cold. I paid the electric bill to get it turned back on. I'm going to cover the utilities from now on. I can't do the mortgage, I just can't. But I can do that. I was stunned into silence. I also found a pile of unopened bills, he continued, his voice low. Credit card statements. Cash advances. They're in debt, Sarah. Deep debt. Way beyond the mortgage. The revelation was a gut punch. All that money, all my sacrifice, and it had just been a finger in a dike that was already riddled with holes. They've been telling the whole family you threw them out on the street for no reason, he said. I told Aunt Sophia the truth last night. She was shocked to hear you'd been paying the mortgage for 3 years. Over the next few months, a new, fragile reality began to take shape. My weekly sessions with Dr. Petrova were my anchor. I mourned the family I'd never had, and slowly, that grief gave way to a quiet acceptance. The house went into foreclosure. Uncle Leo, Dad's more practical brother, stepped in and helped them navigate the grim paperwork. They were moving into his finished basement temporarily. Marco and I continued our coffee meetings, tentatively rebuilding a relationship on the new, honest ground of our shared, complicated history. One afternoon in early spring, Marco handed me an envelope. Mom asked me to give this to you, he said. No pressure to read it. I took it home and let it sit on my counter for 2 days. Finally, I opened it. 2 pages in my mother's elegant, looping script. Dear Serafina, it began. I don't know if you'll read this. I have been trying, for the first time, to see our life from your perspective. I do not like the mother I see through your eyes. Victor is still angry, but I am not. I am just ashamed. I favored Marco. It was easier. He was a simple, happy child. You were complex, observant, and you needed a depth I did not have to give. So I took the easy path. I told myself you were independent, when in reality, I had abandoned you. I am not asking for your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. Too late, I know. But I see it. We are moving to a small rental in Arizona next month. A new start. I hope you are well. I hope you are happy. Mom. There were no excuses, no manipulations. Just a raw, belated accountability. I didn't reply right away. I took the letter to Dr. Petrova. This is a significant step, she said. But one letter doesn't undo a lifetime. Proceed with caution. Your well-being is the priority. My reply, when I sent it a week later, was brief. Mom, I received your letter. Thank you for your honesty. I'm not ready for more communication right now, but I wish you well in Arizona. Sarah. The door was not open, but it was no longer bolted shut. Professionally, my life blossomed. Freed from the constant financial and emotional drain, I poured my energy into my work. Eleanor became a true mentor, recommending me for a leadership program for women in architecture. Life began to feel spacious and full of light. One Saturday in April, just before my parents were due to leave, I was returning from a run along the river when I saw my father standing awkwardly on the sidewalk near my building. My steps slowed. Dad. He turned, looking smaller than I remembered. Sarah. I needed to say something. Before we go. He stared at his shoes. You were right. I was not fair to you. I was jealous, I think. Of your clarity. Your success. It was easier to criticize it than to face my own failures. The long-awaited admission came not with a clap of thunder, but with a quiet sigh. I'm sorry. Thank you for saying that, Dad. He finally looked at me, a flicker of something like pride in his tired eyes. You built a good life for yourself, Sarah. Not because of us. Despite us. I see that now. He gave a small, sad smile. Take care of yourself. I said, and the words felt truer than they ever had before. I finally am. I watched him walk away, a stooped figure heading toward a future I was no longer responsible for financing. There was no grand catharsis, just a quiet sense of release. That night, I hosted a small dinner party. Olivia, Marco, Clara, who was now just a good friend to us both, and a few others from my firm. We gathered around the same table where my old life had shattered. As I looked at their faces, bathed in the warm light of my loft, I felt a wave of profound gratitude. What are you smiling at? Olivia asked. I'm just thinking, I said, that for my whole life, I was trying to be part of a family. And it turns out, I just had to build my own. Marco raised his glass. To the architect, he said, his smile genuine. We all clinked glasses, the sound clear and bright in the evening air. The $90,000 was gone, a costly tuition for the hardest lessons of my life. But the peace, the self-respect, the authentic connections, that was my real return on investment. And it was priceless.